Now, 3 victims of organised grooming gangs in Rochdale have received, quote, substantial damages and an apology from police chiefs who accepted his force had let the women down. As many of us will remember, the Rochdale child sex abuse ring involved underage teenage girls in Rochdale, Greater Manchester.
Yeah, well, 9 men were convicted of sex trafficking and other offences, including rape, trafficking girls for sex and conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with a child back in May 2012. The case shocked the nation. And this topic is one that our viewers really care about intensely, OK? So we're covering it today because a GBNews viewer who didn't want to be named, fair enough, of course, got in touch and said, Mercy and Patrick, please can we talk about grooming gangs? It comes in and out of the news and it seems to be happening in some places across the country, even today. So let's find a way to stop it.
Yes, well, let's talk now to Billy Howarth, founder of Parents Against Grooming UK. Billy, thank you for joining us. Before we put that question to you, can you just tell us about this organisation you're part of, you founded, in fact, Parents Against Grooming?
Yeah, that's correct. We set up Parents Against Grooming UK in the aftermath of the 2012 scandal which happened here in Rochdale. I have to butt in because it's 3 girls, there was 49 girls, 1,400 men. So this is 3 girls have had a substantial payout. What about the other 46 is, they're the ones we represent.
Absolutely no, and we'll get stuck into this really because that was in 2012 when this kind of grooming gang was cracked, as it were. It's taken this long to get an apology for them from the police and this long to get compensation or whatever you want to say, damages. But that's, like you said, only 3 of them. I've got to be honest with you, it doesn't look to me like the police are that sorry.
No, it took 11 years sorry from a guy that wasn't even part of the setup itself at the time. So Chief Inspector Watson, out of 4 different Chief Inspectors, he's been the only one that's come forward and said, yeah, we're sorry. Not really on his part. The others, I believe in accountability. I think sorry is not good enough. I think accountability for those that failed.
And data taken in June 2020 showed there were more than 70 live grooming gang investigations across England, Wales and Scotland. Not all forces submitted this information, and the nationalities and ethnicities of the suspects, they said, varied considerably. But I do have to say, a lot of our viewers do get in touch and they say, look, from my perspective, it's one particular community predominantly. Trevor, for example, here says it's certain communities, which is not to generalise, but if we want to talk about the problem as it happens and who it concerns, we need to address that point.
Look, just be specific, just so we don't end up tarring people with the wrong brush. Look, South Asian men, British Pakistani men, this is not entirely the case, but it is very often the case. So just to be specific about that, and just want your statements on that, really.
Yes, well, the stats are there to speak. 82% of grooming gangs are of South Asian men. That was found here in Rochdale. It was found all over the country to be the same, so there's no denying them stats, is there? They're there for all to see. However, I need to add that a lot of white men and a lot of other people abuse children also. We deal with this every day with PAG UK, so we see the numbers do eventually even out into it's more widespread than we think.
Absolutely, and talk to me about that now, because clearly, despite the fact that the police cracked this grooming gang, you run Parents Against Grooming UK in the same area that they supposedly clamped down on this grooming gang. You must think it's still going on in that area, do you?
Well, only 3-4 weeks ago, there was another 7 men arrested and charged, awaiting outcome, of course, for the same thing, grooming children. 7 other men. So that'll be 9 on top of the 6 and another 7. The numbers are climbing. But don't forget, Maggie Oliver told us there were 1,400. Only 9 initially was convicted. That means there's many more on the streets of Rochdale. And now spreading the wings across the country. With crosstown grooming, with county lines, it's going right across the board. I mean, I'll quickly refer to PAG UK Cumbria, which is it's in its early stages. But again, there we're seeing the same thing happening there at the beginning as what's happened here in the beginning. Now we're going to have to wait another 11 years for an apology in Cumbria.
Well, unfortunately, you might well have to. I mean, I've been hearing rumours about various things, Barrow-in-Furness being a particular area in Cumbria for a very, very long time. I started out as a local reporter up there, and I was hearing things then, and that was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, so goodness only knows, how long it was going on before that as well, but if indeed it was. But, yes, no, look, just in terms of the 3 girls who've received damages, I suppose you could say. I mean, I don't know what the right word for it is, really, because it's sickening what they went through, but that's my point. No amount of money is going to change the trauma of what they went through. And it is absolute trauma, isn't it, for these girls?
Absolutely, it's life destroying for some. Many survivors don't pull through this; they turn to drugs, alcohol, suicide. So we're lucky that some of these girls are still here, and we can still fight for them. They're very strong, but they need accountability. They want accountability. Although yesterday was a massive step for these 3 girls. I've spoken to one, massive step. She's still obviously got things to deal with in her life with trauma, but a sorry is a sorry, and acceptance that she wasn't a liar.
Of course. Look, just to slightly return to something that we were speaking about a little bit earlier in relation to this, there are a lot of our viewers and our listeners, people who watch online as well, who are concerned that the police might be too afraid of being called racist to really get right to the very heart of this. Do you think there's a bit of that going about?
It's most definitely. It's exactly what happened here in Rochdale. It was all manufactured. So it starts with Gordon Brown. The memo he sent. He's a politician. He's not a trained police officer. He's not a lawyer. He's a politician. Andy Burnham, Tony Lloyd, the politicians, but these were the people who was running the police force. That's the problem. You've got politicians running the police forces. The Police and Crime Commission should be a full trained police officer, somebody who knows the job. We're putting politicians in there to run, and it's all about votes, unfortunately, for our kids.
I think you make a really good point there. Actually, a series of very good points.
One of our viewers and listeners got in touch to say that they don't. The sentences aren't enough. They say the victims get compensated. Yeah. The victims have been compensated by the police, but the sort of punishment is not fitting for the perpetrators. I mean, what do you make of the kinds of punishment sentences that perpetrators often get when they have been proven to be involved in grooming gangs in a court of law?
That's correct. I refer to Abdul Rauf, who received 6 years, yet he was released after 2.5 years. So he didn't even serve over half his sentence, 2.5 years for mass child abuse. It's unreal. We need to start being more severe with these sentences. And not just the sentences, but the release conditions also. As you know, Rochdale's had a problem with having to see these abusers walking around the street delivering pizzas and so on, which is in the national media. He was, Abdul Rauf was delivering pizza for Deliveroo or someone, or Uber Eats, whichever one it was. I'm not 100% sure. But this needs preventing. This isn't looking after survivors or victims of crime. This is just forgetting about them. And that's what Rochdale and Greater Manchester Police have been doing for the last, and probation, of course, for the last 11 years.
And I'd go one step further than that as well. Look, for some of the perpetrators and some of the ones I think that were in Telford or whatever, could potentially be deported, and we're not deporting them. Get them out. I'm sorry, but if you've committed these kind of heinous crimes, and it's probably about as bad as it gets, frankly, what's the point of keeping some of these people here? But anyway, look, Billy, thank you so much. Great to have you back on the show, mate, and keep up the good work. I know there's the people all around Rochdale, Cumbria, frankly, most of the northwest, I imagine, as well. Very grateful for the good work that you're doing. So cheers, Billy Howarth there, of course, of Parents Against Grooming UK. I mean, okay, I find it hard not to get really angry about this.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an issue lots of people care about. It's an issue politicians will always deflect because, as you said, there are issues of when you state some of the facts in this case, they're scared of being called racist, as are the police as well. And I think just generally speaking, and this is something I speak about a lot for people who watch regularly, the sentences for people who abuse children are just in general, let alone with grooming, are completely pathetic. And I think if somebody came into power and said, look, on day one, I'm going to make it my mission to increase sentences for child murderers or child rapists or people involved. You know, I think so much of the public would be behind them. I mean, some of the emails we get call for the death penalty in cases like this. So that would even probably be soft, just increasing the sentence.
Absolutely. And I do think as well that there's a really misguided notion of what racism is, actually. It's not racist to report the facts. It's not racist to say this thing has happened, here is the proof, and there it is. I would argue, and I've said it before now, that there's already racism involved when it comes to certain elements of the grooming gang. I do think that certain communities do view, or can view, or certain people from those communities can view young, vulnerable white girls as being lesser than. Right? And I would argue that's racism, OK? And I think that, you know, we need to give our heads a bit of a wobble here if we think that actually just talking about grooming gangs on the news or exposing certain things or saying certain truths is the actual bit that's racist here. That's not my view. Well, that's my view on it anyway. But there we go. GBViews, gbnews.uk. What do you think?